Okay, we are live, and this is episode 11 of the Magical Mystery Talk podcast. This is Mark Devlin, joined by my co hosts as ever. I have a feeling tonight's show is going to be the Matt Sergiou show, also featuring Desiree Hall and Mark Devlin, but we'll see how that goes. So, this is the podcast where we get into conspiratorial and esoteric aspects of the Beatles. Always fun subjects. And we were just talking backstage there about how long we've been doing these shows. And I thought it was 2018 maybe, so we're probably about 7 years deep, nearly 8. Sound about right?
Yeah.
Wasn't the first show when that Yesterday movie came out, the Richard
Yeah.
Curtis film? Was that
Yeah.
the what?
Was that
Whenever that
2018?
film
I think
came
it
out,
was.
that 2018? I'm not sure.
Hmm.
No,
It's thereabouts anyway.
I think thereabouts. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what? 5 years? 4 years? I don't know. Maths was
We only
never my
tend to
strong point.
manage. We only tend to manage about one a year these days because we're all so busy. But it tends to be in December because there's always lots of interesting stuff to talk about then. And today, of course,
Oh,
is the
boy.
8th of December, so it's the 45th anniversary of the assassination of John Lennon. So it seemed an appropriate date to do our first live and put out a show. Of course, let me get this right, in the UK, it was the 9th of December because of the time difference. But
Yep.
in the US, it was
Yeah.
the latter hours of the night of the 8th.
Okay.
So it is a number 9. It does count as a number 9 in the numerology.
does.
But for the purposes of this,
Yes.
it's the 45th anniversary of the 8th of December. So lots to get into, as always. And the first item we've got concerns that nice chap, Mark David Chapman. Right, Matt?
Mhm.
Yeah. I got, well, yeah. I received an email today. It's kind of like a news flash, if you will. But I'll mention Mark David Chapman first, or Mark Chapman.
Well, assassins always have
So-
3 names, you know.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I quickly changed his name. I feel self-conscious saying Mark David Chapman. It's as though that's what they want us to say, like Lee Harvey Oswald, and so on and so on.
Lee
It's always
Oswald
3
just
names,
doesn't
isn't
sound
it?
the same, does it?
No, it doesn't. It's been tapped. It's been drilled into our minds, hasn't it? Like a mind control thing.
It's that
That's
3-part
how it
rhythmic
sounds.
thing that just drills
A
itself
mind
in.
Yeah,
worm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I think it's rather fitting we should start with Mark Chapman and the Lennon killing. And I'm just reviewing my notes here, so let me just check if I've got this right. It was in October, it was reported that once again Mark Chapman, his bid for parole was rejected. That's when I found out about this. Apparently it happened in August. There was a parole hearing in August. His 14th parole hearing since being jailed in 1981 for murdering John Lennon, and surprise, surprise, his bid for parole was turned down because, so it's reported, the parole board, and I quote, found him to lack genuine remorse or meaningful empathy. And he's reported to have said to the parole board, "Here I am, living so much longer, and not just family, but his friends and the fans. I apologise for the devastation that I caused you, the agony that they must have gone through. I had no thought about that at all at the time of the crime. I didn't care. My crime was completely selfish." Now, according to another news report I came across, which claims to have seen the transcript of the actual parole hearing, one of those on the board asked Chapman why he wanted to murder John Lennon. And he replied, and I quote, "To be famous, to be something I wasn't. I just realised, hey, there's a goal here. I can be somebody. I had sunk that low." So we talked about this in at least one other episode of Magical Mystery Talk. Here we go again. This narrative, this official mainstream supported narrative, this official narrative as supported and trumpeted by the mainstream, that Mark Chapman was basically this quote unquote lone crazed gunman, this lone crazed Beatles fan who shot John Lennon because he was seeking fame. But as we've discussed in at least one other episode of Magical Mystery Talk, that doesn't kind of make sense, because first off, if Mark Chapman was looking to gain worldwide fame and recognition for killing John Lennon, why did he plead guilty and thus deny himself the crime of the trial of the century, as some pundits or commentators have labelled it. If not the trial of the century, then the trial of the decade. Now, what happened was, as far as I'm aware, Mark Chapman originally did plead not guilty, and then some way along the line, he phoned his lawyer and said he wanted to change his plea to guilty because he'd got a voice from God telling him to do that. So make of that what you will. And so if he'd have pleaded not guilty, just imagine the media that would have turned up for that trial. It would have been bigger than the O.J. Simpson trial, for sure. We're talking about one of the most famous men in the world who's just been shot dead. He would have had 24-hour news, TV, magazines, newspapers. It would have had news anchors, reporters standing outside the court every day, literally reporting on every breath that was breathed, let alone word that was said. And he said no, I don't. So he denied himself that potential fame. Also, there's the fact
he could have made it a huge show. He could have made it his own show, like when Manson was on trial. Same thing. He could have done all kinds of crazy stuff and to make it.
Yeah, he could have
an even bigger spectacle.
He could have gone on a platform and said, yeah, exactly. And he could have spouted off some kind, like Manson, he could have spouted off some philosophy that he has. He could have, said, "I'm here for J.D. Salinger, Catcher in the Rye. I'm making some case for J.D. Salinger, and made it."
Big shout to MK Ultra.
So, but he didn't. Yeah, exactly. But he didn't do that. And also, in 45 years of having been in jail, he's only done about 4 or 5 media interviews. So for someone who wants to be famous,
he's not
going about it the right way, really, is he? 4 or 5 media interviews.
Well, this all adds fuel to the suggestion that he's not actually in jail, which you hear from time to time. The idea that he was a fit-up guy, a patsy, a stooge, and he's not actually in jail. He's not actually doing that time.
Yeah.
You hear the same suggestion of Charles Manson, that they just wheeled him out for an interview every few years, but you've only got their word for it that he's actually rotting away in a jail cell between those times.
Right.
So I think it would be a good point here to just play a video. I just want to, Matt, I just want to insert this video here, if I can get it to play. So as we're on the 45th anniversary of this news story, this is the reaction, the very famous reaction of Paul McCartney, Billy Shears, take your pick, whoever it is, when he was told that his good buddy John Lennon, with whom he'd shared so many adventures and they were childhood pals and they'd been through all the Beatles years together, had been brutally, violently assassinated. So let me just try and play this video.
Very shocked, It's terrible news.
How did you find out about it?
I got a phone call this morning.
From whom?
From a friend of mine.
Are you planning to go before the funeral?
I don't know yet.
Have you discussed the death with any of the other Beatles?
No.
Do you plan to?
Probably, yeah.
What were you recording today?
I was just listening to some stuff, I just didn't want to sit at home.
Why?
Oh, I didn't feel like it.
What time did you hear the news?
This morning sometime.
Very early?
Yeah. Gone now, yeah? Drag, isn't it? Okay, cheers. Come on.
Guys.
A drag isn't how the world will see it, nor can there ever be any more talk of the Beatles getting together again.
So there it is. There's his reaction, chewing gum and saying it's a drag. So, of course, all kinds of meaning has been applied to that footage. People have said, oh, he's in shock, and you never quite know how you're going to react in these sort of situations. But it also, again, adds fuel to the idea that that's not really Paul, and they didn't really go through all that stuff together. And that actually this guy, whoever he may be, if it's not Paul, didn't actually get on with John. And so it's no big deal to him. So, of course, people must make of that what they will. Just want to send a shout out to some of the people locked in the chat, by the way, because it's the first time we've done a live.
Could be one of the stand-ins.
So big shout out to Benny Boy Truth, OHAM, Juicy Lucy 72, Drumstick 74, Jude JHG, King 777703, Scotty Crawford 111. It's got a fair few people locked in here. Thanks for your comments, folks. Keep them coming. So yeah, reactions to that video there, guys.
It's drag, isn't it? That's my reaction to that video. It's a total drag.
Well, he did. When his father died in his in inverted commas, when his father died in 1976, I think it was, he didn't come to the funeral, did he? He didn't go to the funeral,
Yeah,
his own
right.
father's funeral. And you could even take it back to childhood, when his mother died. Let's just assume that this is the real Paul, quote unquote. This might say more about the real McCartney, if it is the real McCartney, than it being a replacement, although it could be. I'm just leaving that out there for anyone to make their own mind up about. But when his mother died of cancer when he was 14, his brother Mike said that one of the first things that Paul said upon learning that his mother had just died was something along the lines of, "Oh, so how are we gonna make a living now? How are we gonna eat?" That was his first comment.
Maybe he's a bit understated with his emotions then.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have
It could be that
Paul is dead people and Paul is very much alive people locked in on the show tonight.
I mean, my thing is I wouldn't say belief, but my view at this moment, it's open to changing at any time in the future. My mind is open I don't think Paul McCartney died in a car crash. I don't think that Paul McCartney died as the traditional conspiracy theory tells us, that he died in late 1966 in a car crash and he was replaced. And I think that there is definitely more than one Paul.
Right.
And there has been more than one Paul since pre-1966. And it's quite possible that the real Paul, quote unquote, is still alive now. So it could be that guy we just saw now saying it's a drag was the replacement that was pushed out there to make the statement, while the real one was somewhere else. Now that's even more out there.
That pretty much chimes with my standpoint on the Paul issue, to be honest. Definitely more than one all these years. Does that prove anyone died? No, it doesn't. It just proves there's been more than one.
No. Yeah. It proves that there's some major big psyop going on, and maybe that the PID 1966 car crash scenario is some kind of smokescreen.
Yeah, distraction.
Perhaps.
Straight out of Tavistock.
Yeah. From something that's hiding something that's much bigger and much uglier, maybe. I don't know.
I'm with you guys.
I
also feel there's multiple Paul McCartneys and possibly more than even two. Just people coming in through the years to do certain things or replace one another or whatever. You know, I mean, I think Paul McCartney, whoever he is, has doubles, and why not? If I had all that money and I didn't want to go do a stupid interview and I could hire somebody else to do it for me, heck yeah, I'd do it. I'm sure there's more to it than that. But at the same time, I mean, if the opportunity is there, why not? So.
Sure. Okay, we should probably move on to item number 2, which is the Power to the People box set.
Yeah. Before I do, though, I have had, you could call it a news flash. It's kind of like a news flash. I got an email today. Shall I mention this? Because it is to do with John Lennon. And it is quite, it's quite explosive, actually. I don't know if that's the right term to use, but yeah, I got an email. So what happened is today, I woke up this morning and I've had to type this all out. So forgive me if I'm looking at pieces of paper. It's just that I haven't had time to process this properly. So I'm looking at the bits of paper I've typed out. So what happened is today, this morning, I literally woke up to find an email bulletin from David Whelan, who's the author of the book Mind Games: The Assassination of John Lennon. The book came out in December 2023 and it challenges the mainstream narrative surrounding John Lennon's shooting. And in the writing of the book, Whelan has interviewed most of the main protagonists. He's done the footwork. He hasn't just sat at home and done a little bit of research on the net. He's gone out there and he's spoken to many of the main people that were there on the day that it happened and in the days leading up to it. So policemen, investigating policemen, detectives, lawyers, and the doctor and the two nurses who tried to resuscitate Lennon. Now, I've interviewed Whelan. I interviewed him back in November 2023. The Occult Beatles, and at my YouTube page, Conspiro TV. So if you want to get the full lowdown, well, the interview isn't the full lowdown, but you'll get a more in-depth look, focus in on what he and he regularly posts up new developments. Even though he's written the book, he's finding out new stuff all the time, and he's posting these up on his Substack page. And he sends subscribers emails. It's free subscription. So yeah, one of these came to me this morning, and it's pretty depressing. Not only is it explosive in its content, it's pretty depressing, I think. Depressing because this doctor who Whelan spoke to, who tried to resuscitate John Lennon, and who for so many years had been contradicting the mainstream narrative, appears, in Whelan's words, to have flipped. The doctor's name is David Halloran. So a bit of background. According to the official narrative, as we know, John Lennon was shot 4 times in the back. That's what the mainstream official account tells us. According to the mainstream narrative, Chapman was behind John Lennon when he shot him. So the shots went through the back. However, many years later in 2011, this Dr. Halloran came along, and he was on duty at ER at the hospital when this happened. And he's the guy that tried to resuscitate Lennon. And he came out in 2011 in public and said for the first time that John's bullet wounds were all entry wounds into the chest. Mm-hmm. So this throws completely new light on the official narrative, because it says that whoever shot John Lennon must have been shooting from the front. So it couldn't have been Chapman unless it was some kind of magic bullet that he fired, and then the bullets kind of stopped midway, went, hit the brakes, turned around, and then, the Kennedy magic bullet kind of syndrome. So this would suggest that it couldn't have been Chapman that shot him, that there must have been gunmen shooting from the front. Gunmen or a gunman. So Whelan spoke with Halloran whilst he was researching this book. And he also spoke to the two nurses who tried to save Lennon's life. The two nurses are, I hope I pronounced their name right, Dietra Sato and Barbara Camera. And all of them told Whelan that Lennon was shot in the front. To quote Whelan, quoting Halloran, Lennon was shot in a tight professional grouping around his heart, 4 in the front, 3 in the back. And I've seen videos of Halloran saying this, news reports from back in 2011 and beyond, where he says this, that he shot, where whoever it was shot John Lennon, they shot him from the front. But here's what's since happened, and this is according to the email I got today from Whelan. Now, Whelan in the email refers to a video of a doctors' conference that was held in 2023, in which Halloran goes back on what he's been saying. So this said video is a doctors' conference on video that Whelan claims that this video is slowly being leaked on the internet. He's managed to see it, but he seems to imply that this is going to get out. Eventually, it's going to come out fully. So in this video, Whelan claims that Halloran refers to a quote-unquote British service who has interviewed him, and Whelan believes that quote-unquote British service to be him. Okay, so quoting Halloran in this video, Whelan claims that Halloran then goes on to say at this conference that this British service, i.e. Whelan, likes to believe that there is some kind of conspiracy going on and believes that John Lennon was shot in the front. I have spoken to him, i.e. Whelan, and I said to him that he was really shot in the back. Then in the video, Whelan claims that Halloran then goes on to claim that Whelan said to him, well, that's what the nurses said. He was shot in the front, so I'm going to go with that, right? So Whelan in the email calls this out as blatant lies, to quote Whelan, quote unquote, blatant lies, stating that in all the conversations I have had with Halloran, he was always adamant that John was shot in the front. Whelan also points out in this video of Halloran from 2023 that Halloran claims to have recently been given a copy of the official autopsy, and the copy of this autopsy he claims was given to him. This is what Halloran claims in this conference. The copy of this autopsy Halloran claims was given to him by a quote-unquote couple of British TV people who told Halloran they got a hold of this copy of the autopsy legally, but also said to Halloran, quote-unquote, just don't show anybody. And this is what it would appear has got Halloran now dancing to the tune of the official narrative. Now, I distinctly remember I'd have to go back and look at the old episodes of our 2-part John Lennon assassination special from 2020. But I seem to remember us talking about Halloran then and the 4 shots in the front, and having seen footage of Halloran on YouTube talking about this many, many times. I went online today to try and find some of those videos, and would you believe it? Some of them aren't there anymore. But I did manage they're not there anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I did manage to find a few quotes. So just to make sure that Halloran, that Whelan's not, telling tales here. So here's a quote from Halloran from the Liverpool Echo, November 9th, 2015. This is what he said. He had 4 shots over the front of his chest, 3 exit wounds at the back, not responsive, no pulse. We immediately just opened up his chest. I opened up his chest. His heart was intact, lots of blood. Right, so that's Liverpool Echo 2015. CNY Central, another news source, November 19th, 2015. 4 gunshot wounds over his left chest, 3 exit wounds. That's quoting Halloran again. And here's what he said in a podcast for the Upstate Medical University from 2011. That evening at around 11:15, I was in the hospital. I got paged to go to ER. I go running down and they say, we have a gunshot wound to the chest. This is him in 2021 for the news source News Nation. I go down to the ER. This is him recounting what happened that night. I go down to the ER. What's going on, I say? And they say, we have a gunshot wound to the chest. Come in. And finally, Nurse Camera speaking to National Geographic, and I found this on TikTok. Nurse Camera, who was one of the nurses that night, she says he had 4 entrance wounds on his chest and 3 exit wounds on his back. So he's turned.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been got to.
Depressing stuff, I think.
I wonder why, after all this time. Yeah, after all this time, what's the difference? Why change it? Why change it now? It's already out there and has been for 45 years. So.
Or maybe our podcast.
Remember Halloran changed his mind before. Remember, he wasn't even originally the doctor who saw Lennon. Remember? He came out years later.
And was like, oh no, actually it was he was the guy. If you watch the old footage from 1980.
Right.
Yeah. He was the guy that came out with the white jacket on and said and announced to the press that John Lennon had died.
Right. Exactly. But he, it was him.
And Stephen Lynn was telling people that he was the man that tried to save John Lennon.
Right, exactly. And it was, yeah.
And
so it's already,
and then it didn't come out until 2011.
Yeah. Well, hopefully someday that will come more to light, but I guess today is not the day.
Can you imagine what an incredible show we're going to be doing when Paul McCartney finally clocks out?
In like 100 years from now?
Yeah, right. It just feels like he's going to live forever.
Which one?
Mm-hmm.
Which one?
Which one? Yeah, he'll probably outlive us.
Yeah.
To be fair,
yeah,
so we'll never get to do that show. Just
He's
freezing a bit there. Yeah. We should probably move on to the box set items. Otherwise, we are going to run out of time on this one. I think Matt's
all
just
right.
popped out there, actually.
Yeah, it
Hopefully
looks
he's
like
going to come back.
he's buffering.
Okay. Hope you got your notes straight, Desiree, because it's over to you otherwise.
Well, no, not really. I always leave it up to Matt to do all the heavy talking.
I do
the
as
heavy
well. We're
breathing.
kind of stuffed when he's not here, aren't we? So
Yeah,
we've got
that's
lots of
all right.
other items on the agenda, and we were going to try and keep this show at under an hour and a half, or
Yep.
certainly under 2 hours. So we want to talk about the Mind Games and Power to the People box sets.
Yep.
John Lennon documentary, Borrowed Time, Lennon's Last Decade. We've got the article on Phoebe Gates and Paul McCartney's grandson having broken up, apparently, in their relationship. That was very unlikely. So do you know about that one, that story?
Not so much. I mean, I just exactly what you said, that they apparently had broken up. I could put in here that on I believe it was our last episode, we had talked about the Luminate app that I believe John Lennon or Sean Lennon, the Lennon estate, had helped to fund.
Yeah.
And then I saw, and then months later on TikTok, I saw an advertisement for it, and they're actually advertising it as a hallucination app. And so you download this app on your phone, and you put the flash of the camera basically to you, and it flashes these series of lights, and you're supposed to sit there with your eyes closed, and it's actually supposed to make you actively hallucinate without any drugs, and they're literally advertising it as such. I just thought that was really interesting as something from the Lennon estate is funding.
Yeah,
So,
if only they'd had that technology in the 60s, no LSD necessary.
right, exactly. You just need your phone. You just need your little magic box there. That's
Probably
it.
more fun with LSD, to be fair. I'm
Maybe.
sure it was. Any boomers out there that were dropping acid
No
in the
comment
60s?
there.
Yeah, tell us. Matt's back.
Matt, welcome.
What happened, buddy?
I don't know. Just streamed out and streamed back in again.
That's all right.
Dropped out there.
Merrily down the stream.
Yeah, I was
Turn
listening
on,
because I was
tune in, drop out.
backstage, as it were. Yeah.
Well, we're glad you're back.
Yards. There's this little box. I was backstage watching you guys.
Dropping out more than Timothy
So-
Leary.
Yeah, the was a little bit slow.
Well, you
Anyway.
heard I just took up about the Illuminate app, and that's where
heard.
we left off. Yeah.
All right, so we could tick that off the list. So let's get into these box sets, or we're going to not have enough time to cover everything. Power to the People, Mind Games. What's going on there? Over to you, Matt.
Yeah. Can you still hear me? Because you're a little bit.
Yeah.
To me, you look like you're freezing up all the time. I'm just
Yeah,
wondering if
we're
that's
getting
just
that with
me,
you,
or
but
if
we
that-
can't hear you at the moment. See, this is the trouble with
you
doing
can't hear
things
me.
live.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you
Yeah.
now.
See and hear
Yeah.
you. Go ahead.
Yes. It's all going wrong. Okay, so power to the People box set. Yeah. Because in the last episode of Magical Mystery Talk, we talked about the Mind Games box set, which was the John Lennon 1973 album, which got reissued in box set form. And it seems to be a trend at the moment, doesn't it? Lots of artists from back in the day releasing albums from back in the day in box set form, deluxe box set form. So you get the album, the original album, remastered, remixed. You get outtakes with it as well. You get lots of CDs and DVDs in the box set with outtakes and live versions and live concerts and demos of songs that ended up on the album, songs that didn't end up on the album. So there was the Mind Games box set, which came out a couple of years ago, or a year or so ago, I can't remember now, from John Lennon. He's now the Lennon estate have now released another one. And this is it's called the Power to the People box set, and it's credited to John and Yoko. But what makes this one different, it's quite original in terms of a box set, because it's not concentrating on a particular album, although there is one particular album in this box set. The album in question is the album Sometime in New York City, which came out in 1972. But aside from that, what makes it unique, I think, is that it's a box set which is concentrating on a particular era in John and Yoko's life, and that's late 1971 and right the way through to 1972, which was a time in Lennon's and Yoko Ono's life when they were getting involved in the so-called radical community, quote unquote, when they were getting quote unquote involved in radical politics. So this is went to New York, and John was never to return to the UK after this. And for about a year or so, give or take a few months, they stayed in New York around Greenwich Village, and they started to hang around with the known for short as YIP. So anyone who was a member of this was called a Yippie. So that was Hoffman and Rubin. And yeah, by this stage in Lennon's life, late 71 and through 72, he was really getting engaged in activism for a number of causes and issues that were very anti-British and American government. He was going on marches, rallies, demonstrations, performing at benefit and protest concerts. And a lot of those benefit and protest concerts are featured in this box set. So you get recordings of these benefit and protest concerts, and also the album Sometime in New York City from 72. It's a John and Yoko album. A lot of Yoko's songs are what you might call protest songs. All of John's songs on the album are protest songs, all of them. And it got the one-to-one concert, one of the benefit concerts that John Lennon performed at. And what the
It's going so well, guys.
mental health issues, and in particular, one particular hospital in New York, which was called the Willowbrook State School. And the Willowbrook State School came to his attention from
It's funny how it's only Matt that's glitching out,
this
as he's the one with all the info.
Right. It's a conspiracy.
Right. We should have had Matt's notes so we could carry on without him.
am I gone again?
You're coming and going.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see. All right. So you didn't catch any of that?
Coming and going like waves of COVID. Not really.
We got most of it. Maybe
Most
just
of
not
it.
the last 30
Okay.
seconds.
Right.
Okay. So did you
think we got
catch
the
the bit
gist.
about did you catch a bit about the benefit concert for one-to-one?
That's right about when you were glitching out.
Yeah. So he held a concert to raise awareness of mental health issues, but what brought this to his attention was a hospital called the Willowbrook State School. And there was a TV expose with Geraldo Rivera, who's a well-known TV chat show host in the States. He was a TV reporter at the time. And what he did was he went into the Willowbrook State School in New York. It's called the Willowbrook State School. It was kind of a school, but it was also a men's and it housed not only children but men and women. So it was adults and children. And so Geraldo Rivera went into this hospital with a camera, and you can find this online actually. Naked children sitting on the floor in their own excrement, because what had happened was they by local government, and there was just not enough staff to be able to take care of the patients, so they were just left there all day, just rocking backwards and forwards on the floor in their own excrement, naked. And according to one figure, 100% of the patients who were at the hospital would contract hepatitis within 6 months of being there, and this was blamed on the budget cuts due to. So what happened was Geraldo met with John and Yoko, and he says, "Can you do something about this? Is there anything you can do?" So they held a benefit concert basically, and it was called the 1-to-1 concert. It was 2 concerts, one in the afternoon, one in the evening, and you can find these on the box set. And according to Geraldo, the 2 Lennon concerts raised $180,000 in tickets at the gate, $350,000 in TV rights, more in radio rights, and according to Geraldo, the money helped to buy houses for the children to live in, and up to 10 children would live in each of these homes that were bought for them. So this not only raised awareness about the Willowbrook State School, it also raised awareness about mental health as a whole. So yes, this was a mental hospital, which was also a school. But what Geraldo found when he went into the hospital with his camera crew was that the school wasn't being used because there wasn't enough staff to be able to take the kids to the school. So they were just sitting there all day, rocking backwards and forwards, in their own filth, basically. So the reason it's called 1-to-1, it was called 1-to-1, was because prior to the concert taking place, the afternoon show taking place, there was this great big festival in Central Park with circus, with parades, free food, dance therapy sessions, puppet shows for the kids, and children from institutions were brought to the festival to enjoy the day, and they were chaperoned by able-bodied volunteers. So that's the reason why it was called 1-to-1. So that's one of the concerts that's in there. Another concert was the John Sinclair Freedom Rally, and this was held in December 71, if I'm not mistaken, in New York again. And this was to call attention to an American activist by the name of John Sinclair. And he was jailed in 1969, sentenced to, get this, 9.5 to 10 years in prison after, in his words, he was accused of, and I quote, to quote him, having given 2 joints to an undercover policewoman just before Christmas 1966. So he stayed in jail. He went to jail in 1969, I think. And according to John Sinclair, he said he's this radical, quote unquote, radical activist. So he thought the reason that he was really being jailed was because of his, activism. So to paraphrase John Sinclair, he says, okay, so I went into jail 1969 and I thought, okay, I'll be out of here soon. They're not going to keep me in jail.
Sounds like Keir Starmer's not so Great Britain in 2025.
I'll be out soon on appeal. So he sat there and he waited and didn't come out. So in the end, he turned to his radical friends, quote unquote, and they held a concert, a rally, an awareness concert to sort of highlight his situation. John Lennon was on the bill, as was Stevie Wonder. Bobby Seale from the Black Panthers made a speech there as well.
Off he goes.
And one of the songs that John performed at the rally was John Sinclair, which is on the Sometime in New York City album. And within 3 days of the concert, John Sinclair was freed. So whether that had anything to do with John Lennon taking part in this, I don't know. So that performance, I think, is also featured in the box set as well. Moving on to some of the music on the album, Sometime in New York City, all of John's songs on this album are political, radical politics, quote unquote. And if you look at the cover of the album, which came out in 72, you'll notice that it looks like a newspaper. And the reason for that is because every song on that album that John has written and is singing is basically reacting to a cause or an issue that has just taken place. So he's reacting to it and getting it out there, recording it as though it was a newspaper story. So direct. Now, a couple of the songs, well, there's about 2 or 3 songs on the album, 2 for sure, that are really controversial, really, really controversial, and quite shocking when you take into account that it's John Lennon that's actually singing these songs with the lyrical content, because, you know, John Lennon was arguably one of the most famous men in the world, and for him to come out with lyrics like he did on that album, really, really explosive,
Controversial.
very controversial. For example, there's 2 songs on there about the Northern Ireland issue. Now, earlier in 1972, before the album came out, he'd taken part in a demonstration in New York against British policy in Northern Ireland, which at the time, to put it lightly, was being blighted by violence and terror attacks, known as the Troubles. So you had one side of Ireland wanting to remain under British rule, and then you had the other side wanting to break away from it and become independent. So just to give you a very, very, very summarised history of Ireland at that time. So for a number of generations, for a number of centuries, Ireland had been under the control of the English. But by the early 20th century, from what I understand, this was starting to become very unpopular, and people wanted to break away from British rule. So in 1921, the British government divided Ireland into 2 parts. It granted independence to most of it, with the northern part staying within the UK. By the late 60s, though, this arrangement became, this creation of Northern Ireland became violent. It turned into violence, and it turned into what's known as the Troubles. So you had Northern Ireland, you had the Loyalists and the Unionists, who were in the most part Protestant, who wanted to remain within the UK, and then you had the Irish nationalists and the Republicans, who were mostly Irish Catholics, who wanted Northern Ireland to leave the UK and join a united Ireland. Now, it's maybe important to note here that John Lennon was part Irish. His great-grandparents on his father's side were Irish. His great-grandfather was born in County Down in Northern Ireland and moved to Liverpool. And when he moved to Liverpool, he moved to a Catholic neighbourhood, and that's where he met his Irish-born wife-to-be, who's John's great-grandmother. And their son, also called John, went on to have a son, Alfred, who's John's dad. And and this Alfred, John's dad, his mother was 3/4 Irish as well and part Scottish. So Beatle John was certainly from Irish stock. So this might explain why he was coming out with these, why he was demonstrating against British rule in Northern Ireland. So
just to muddy the waters,
on...
Matt, according to Dom at Sheep Farm, there's a lot of Welsh ancestry with John
there
as
is
well.
Indeed.
If you go back far enough, Welsh kings.
Yes, Welsh kings and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, something I've really got to dig into. Yes, definitely. I've got a book about it.
But isn't it interesting that pretty much the only protest song that Paul McCartney did in the early 70s was his song Give Ireland Back to the Irish? So he weighed in on that political issue, but that's the only one that he would speak up about.
Yeah, that was 1972, I think it was. Yeah, that was the same year he released. That was when he formed the band Wings. The first single they ever released was Give Ireland Back to the Irish, and I think it was banned by the BBC as well at the time. Still managed to get into the top 20.
Chart hit, though. Yeah.
Chart hit, yeah. And so John recorded 2 songs for some time in New York City, one of which was The Luck of the Irish. I'll read you some of the lyrics, not all of them, just the bits where they're pretty explosive. So, if you had the luck of the Irish, you'd be sorry and wish you were dead. You should have the luck of the Irish and you'd wish you was English instead. 1,000 years of torture and hunger drove the people away from their land. A land full of beauty and wonder was raped by the British brigands. Why the hell are the English there anyway, as they kill with God on their side? Blame it all on the kids and the IRA as the bastards commit genocide. So IRA, that's the Irish Republican Army, who were deemed to be a terrorist group who were fighting for Irish independence. So that's one of the pro-Irish songs on the album. The other one is Sunday Bloody Sunday, which is Lennon's response to the Bloody Sunday incident in Northern Ireland in January 1972. That's when the British Army shot dead 13 civilians during a civil rights march after the then Prime Minister of Northern Ireland, a unionist, had introduced what was called internment, or in other words, what's described as detention without trial. When the then British, well, not the British, when the then Prime Minister, the said Prime Minister announced this, he claims he was doing it in order to arrest and detain without trial people who were accused of being connected to paramilitary groups or political subversives who he deemed to be a threat to society. Problem is that internment ended up with a lot of innocent people being arrested and detained. And from what I understand, one of the reasons this march took place where these people got shot was it was a civil rights march in protest against internment. So in John's song Sunday Bloody Sunday, here's just some of the lyrics again. Well, it was Sunday Bloody Sunday when they shot the people there, the cries of 13 martyrs. Not a soldier boy was bleeding when they nailed the coffin lids. They've got a lot to learn. Internment is no answer. You Anglo pigs and Scotties sent to colonise the north, you wave your bloody Union Jacks and you know what it's worth. How dare you hold the ransom, a people proud and free? Keep Ireland for the Irish, put the English back to sea. Leave Ireland for the Irish, not for London or for Rome. Now, back in 1972, when this song was released, there was an inquiry into the Bloody Sunday incident that ruled that the British Army was justified in opening fire. However, about 30 years later in 2010, another inquiry found that actually the killings were, quote unquote, unjustified and unjustifiable. So for one of the most famous men on the planet to be coming out with lyrics like that is really quite
powerful.
something. Very powerful. There's also the song Attica State from the same album, which is about it's a song that was written and recorded in response to an uprising, a prison uprising, a riot, if you will, that took place at Attica State Prison in New York in September 1971. And what happened was some of the prisoners for 5 or so days took over the prison, and they took hostage some of the warders and some of the prison staff. And what they were looking for, they composed a list of demands, and most, if not all of those demands on that list were basically for better conditions in prison. So access to better, healthier food and drink, for example. I've seen the list of demands. It is available online. For example, they claimed that the hot water that they were drinking and washing with in the evenings was given to them in rusty and dirty buckets. They also claimed that they were discriminated against by staff. Black prisoners were being discriminated against openly. They wanted safer working conditions, and they also claimed that they used to get one toilet roll each, a roll of toilet paper each, that had to last them for 5 weeks. So they were asking for changes to their conditions. And what happened was, after about 4 or 5 days, they talked with officials, and most or some of those demands were met, but not all of them. So the prisoners wouldn't back down. They said, no, we're going to stay here until all our demands are met. So that resulted in state police storming into the prison, opening fire, and resulting in and about 9 or 10 hostages, depending on what report you believe. So the state police just ran in there, just opening fire. Apparently, it would seem randomly.
And that's where
over 5 days, 43 people were killed. And John Lennon goes into this in the song Attica State, which is,
and that's where Mark David Chapman was sent when he was sent to prison.
Yeah,
Attica State.
That is.
That's
ironically
when
he's sent to Attica State, and he's ironic, a twisted sense of irony there. He was there from 1981 I can't remember until when, but quite a long time. He's not there anymore, but he was there for about
Right.
20 years or so, I think.
Yeah.
So that's quite ironic. But what's quite interesting about the lyrics to this is that in the lyrics, John Lennon blames the deaths of those 43 people on none other than Nelson Rockefeller, because Nelson Rockefeller at the time was the governor of New York,
Right.
and he had refused requests to go into the prison and to speak to the prisoners. And he just said, basically, he just said, no, I'm not going in there. Just send the state police in, guns are blazing. And a report into the uprising, into the riot and what happened subsequently was released. There was an investigation. And that concluded that Rockefeller shouldn't have given the green light to the state police going in until he had gone in himself and exhausted every single avenue possible. So basically, he should have gone in, spoken with the prisoners, and decided whether or not he could go any further, and then he should have then considered whether or not to send in the state police. But what he did was he just said no, he didn't do any of that, so he sent them in. And Lennon, this is one of the lyrics from the song. This is what Lennon sings in Attica State. He says, "Rockefeller pulled the trigger. That is what the people feel. Attica State, we're all mates with Attica State." So here we have John Lennon openly calling a member of one of the so-called Illuminati families a murderer in music. So then, fast forward to 1980, you might say, well, is it any wonder he ended up the way he did? It's also worth pointing out that Nelson Rockefeller was the governor of New York when the budget cuts were made to the Willowbrook State School. So he was in charge when that happened. So again, that's kind of Lennon snapping at his heels as well, because he held that benefit concert to raise awareness of what was going on at that hospital. So you got Lennon just like this mosquito, and Rockefeller's trying to sort of shoo it away, and it just keeps flying back again in his face. It's like this annoying
Meanwhile,
presence.
Ringo sings about octopus's gardens, and he's doing just fine. Playing the safe route.
Right.
I like to be under the sea.
No need.
So
mate,
yeah.
no need.
Yeah, no need. I don't even want to hear the Ringo version, let alone mine.
Yeah.
I think I prefer the Ringo version.
Oh, come on. Oh, stop it. Now there is another apart from Attica State being the prison where Mark Chapman ended up, that being a twisted irony in itself. There's another twisted irony, because I think there was a benefit concert that was held for the victims of the families of the riot, and this took place at the Harlem's Apollo Theatre, the legendary Apollo Theatre, the soul music mecca, if you will, where artists like James Brown, Marvin Gaye, Otis Redding, Smokey Robinson, Aretha Franklin have played. And there was a benefit concert for the to raise awareness of what happened to Attica State, for the victims of it, for the families of the victims who were killed there. And I'm not sure when this concert took place. It's on the box set. Again, this live show is on the box set. I can't remember if it was late 71 or early 72. Can't quite remember, but I think, and you can find this on YouTube, a day before that concert took place, John and Yoko appeared on the David Frost show in America, and they sang the song Attica State. And after they sang the song, they came up to the front of the stage and sat down at the edge of the stage to talk with David Frost. As I say, you can find this on YouTube. And as they're talking, there's a bit of heckling going on at the back of the audience. And John says to the hecklers, he says, "I can't hear you. Why don't you come down and speak with us? I can't hear you." And David Frost says, yeah, come down, air your grievances. So the man and the woman who were heckling from the back of the audience came down to the front of the audience and sat down. And basically they just ripped shreds into John and Yoko, accusing them of glorifying the riots, making martyrs of the prisoners in the song Attica State. And John said, well, we're not really, that's not our aim. Our aim is not to make martyrs of the prisoners. If you listen to the song, he says to the man and the woman. If you listen to the song, we're actually talking about 43 people who died. That's 43 people. That's 43 people who were not only inmates but also the prison staff and the warders. But this man and woman were having none of this. They would say, no, you're glorifying prisoners. You're making martyrs of prisoners, people who have done harm to society, who've been locked away, and you're bigging them up. Basically, you're making them into heroes. And John says to one of the audience members, well, look at it this way, okay? Look at it this way. I won't say exactly what he said. You can find this on YouTube. But basically, John Lennon makes the argument against the prison system as it was back in the 70s. He's saying, look, the prison system isn't working. We're putting all these people in prison and it's not working. Society is getting more and more violent. It's getting sicker and sicker. So whatever it is that we're doing, it's not working. And then he went on to say that a lot of non-violent people were ending up in prison and ending up getting crazy whilst being in prison, and actually ending up becoming violent because they were being placed somewhere where they shouldn't really be. And I can't remember if it was the man or the woman, and this is where the twisted irony comes in. I think it was the woman, because Yoko then says, yes, we have to... Yoko replied to that, to John's comment, basically by saying, yeah, what we've got to do is we've got to treat people with love and care. We've got to treat these prisoners with love and care. We've got to treat people, everyone has the basic right to freedom, she says. And the woman who's listening to this, she says, okay, well, it's easy for you to say that. You know, you think the solution to these prisoners is to give them all a kiss and give them a hug and everything's going to be okay. But think of it from my perspective, she says. She says, I live in New York, and that's like living in a prison, because every day when I walk home, I have to hold my bag close to my chest, and I have to look over my shoulder because I might get violently attacked on the streets of New York. To which Yoko replies, no, everybody has the right to freedom, they have a basic right to freedom, love, and care. The twisted irony in that, when you take what the woman was saying to Yoko, is what then happened to John Lennon just a few years later in 1980 on the streets of New York. And it's also ironic, given the fact that Yoko Ono, according to reports that I've read, every time that Mark Chapman has come up for parole, Yoko Ono has blocked it. So this woman who back in 1972 was saying, late 72, late 71, early 72 was saying everybody has a basic right to freedom, is now instrumental in keeping Mark Chapman from being freed. Now, for sure, in 2003, she wrote a letter to the parole board appealing for Mark Chapman not to be released. Now, according to reports I've read, that letter, with a few modifications, has been sent to the parole board every single time that Mark Chapman has stood up for parole ever since 2003. So she keeps sending in that letter, slightly revised, but the same letter, asking the parole board not to release him. So for this woman who says that she's, wanted that everyone has the basic right to freedom, here she is now blocking somebody from coming out of jail.
We were talking earlier about McCartney being immortal, but what about Yoko? She's older than he is. And she keeps getting ill, apparently, and we think, oh, this is it. Yoko's on the way out, and she keeps pulling through. And how old is she now?
92, I think.
Wow.
I think she's 92. She's not
Just
well.
Keeps hanging on in there.
She keeps hanging on in there. She's not well. She's moved out of the Dakota, where she was since 1973. I think she lives by the coast now. I think like a retirement
something
home
like that.
thing.
Yeah, on one of their
like
ranches or cattle farms or something. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah. And Sean Lennon, John and Yoko's son, is now the man who runs the estate, basically, and he was in charge of putting together this box set, the remastering of it, picking the tracks, putting the box set together, the packaging and everything. So he's now the man. And actually, if you look on the credits of various Beatles projects and Lennon projects that are coming out now, if you look, it always says executive producer. It will say Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr. It will say the widow of George Harrison, also Olivia, and it will say Sean Lennon. It doesn't mention Yoko anymore. So I think she's completely backed away now.
As we're talking about Sean here, Matt, maybe you want to talk about the removal of a particular song from the Lennon box set, which would appear to have been Sean's decision, and the ways in which he justified its removal.
Yeah, so one of the tracks on the album, we can't even say we can't say it, can we? This is the woke world that we live
Woman
in.
is
We
the
can't say it because
of
if
the
we
world.
The N word.
yeah, can I even spell it?
No.
Can I spell
I don't know.
the word?
Maybe the N word.
I think people will know what we're talking about if we say N word.
The N word with the hard
N-word,
R
okay.
at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, the N word that a lot of rappers can say and they don't get barred, basically. Yeah, so there was it's true, isn't it? How can rap anyway? So one of the songs on sometime in New York City is the song "Woman Is the N of the World," and yeah, when it's a pro-feminist song. It was written by John and Yoko. It's sung by John, but it was written by John and Yoko actually came up with the title herself. It's a pro-feminist song. Here's just some of the lyrics from it. Woman is the N of the world. Yes, she is. Think about it. Do something about it. We make her paint her face and dance. If she won't be a slave and say that she don't love us. If she's real, we say she's trying to be a man. While putting her down, we pretend that she's above us. Woman is the N of the world. Woman is the slave of the slaves. We make her bear and raise our children. We tell her home is the only place she should be. Then we complain that she's too unworldly to be our friend. We insult her every day on TV and wonder why she has no guts or confidence. When she's young, we kill her will to be free. While telling her not to be so smart, we put her down for being so dumb. So this was actually released as a single in 1972 in America. I don't think it was banned by radio stations, but they refused to play it. So it just came and it went and it sank without a trace, basically. I don't want to speak up for any. I don't want to speak up for black people. I don't want to say that they were in support of this song, but I'll just quote you one black congressman at the time, Ronald V. Dellums, who issued a statement when the song came out. And he said, if you define the N-word as someone whose lifestyle is defined by others, whose opportunities are defined by others, whose role in society is defined by others, then good news. You don't have to be black to be an N in this society. Most of the people in America are N's. So, okay, so what happened was, a few months before the box set came out, it was announced that that song wasn't going to be on the box set. One of the songs on Sometime in New York City was not going to be in that box set. And for my sins, one way I relaxed to get away from this research madness that I spend most of my life. One way I escape from it is just to watch Beatles podcasters, but mainstream Beatles podcasters, just talking about a load of old stuff, talking about the latest blue vinyl they bought, or the latest Beatles wallpaper they've just put up in their bedroom, just really sort of, trivial stuff.
Beatles toothbrush set. Soap dish.
Just not having to concentrate too much. So, hear me. If I'm still there.
You're there. You're there. You're just going slow.
I'll go on. So, I'll go on anyway. So, yeah, how I just, my way of escaping from all of this is basically just to watch these mainstream podcasters. It's just like,
oh, he's gone again.
There he goes.
There he goes. Let's just do a few shout outs to some of the people on the chat. At this
Yeah, I
point.
feel bad.
We've got-
I can't respond to them like
Yeah, you can
via
see the
text,
comments, right?
but
We're
I can see them. Yeah.
getting a lot of good
Awesome.
feedback here. Big shout
Mhm.
out to Scotty Crawford 111. He says, I don't agree with you three, but I like you. Okay. Might be the wrong show for you. Drumstick 74, Shirley Tequila, Richard Belducci. What's up, brother? Welcome on. Blowing minds with his research as ever. OHAM again. We got David Parker 9676. Who else is in here? Black AF F5U, King 77703. Fuck you, Pell. Okay, that's his name, apparently.
Wow.
Silent Underdog 9023. Big shout out to everyone in the chat there. Matt appears to be back. Let's try and bring him in. Here he is. You're back.
I'm back.
Welcome
I'm
back.
Yeah,
Just
I'm
doing the
back.
shouts like an old school pirate radio show. A lot of people
Yeah,
locked in here.
those were the days. Those were the days.
Yeah.
Hello to everybody. Thanks for watching.
We got a lot of
and
people
listening and
asking us
putting up with us.
questions. Maybe I should take a note
Okay.
of some of these questions and we could possibly address these next time because we can't really do it in
Yeah.
real time because we're operating to a schedule here. But lots of great points
Yeah.
being raised, questions
This
being
is
asked,
awesome.
lots of trading of comments, and great to
Mhm.
see so many people locked in. We got 180 watching right now, so that's
Wow.
really great.
Hello.
Thank you very
to
much.
have you along,
Thank
guys.
you. Really appreciate that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I don't know where I cut out, but yeah, I was just saying I like to watch these sort of mainstream Beatles podcasters going on about their record collections because that's my way of kind of escaping from researching every day and reading stuff. That's my
It's
relaxation.
not really
you
escaping,
know?
is it? Like you ask Dom from Sheep
It
Farm
is.
how he unwinds, and he's like, doing research. And you're like, no, but how do you unwind from the research? Doing research. That's all I've got.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Comes
know
to
that
something
feeling.
when your life
Yeah.
consists of nothing more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love it. I love it. But yeah, so I was listening to these mainstream podcasters who never touch anything to do with conspiracy or the occult, especially to do with the Beatles. I mean, yeah, you know, they would never go that near the
Never.
Beatles and conspiracy because oh no, their precious Beatles would never be involved in anything like that.
I always
But
say
even
la la la
they
la la
were-
la. That's what they're
Yeah,
always.
yeah, yes,
Don't hear it.
yeah, especially if it.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if it's about Mark Chapman and the official
Yeah, and
narrative to the
John.
shooting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if you question that,
Especially.
it's like la 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 la. We don't care. We only
Exactly
want
it.
to talk about the music. La 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 la. We don't want
Yeah.
to know about anything else but the music. La 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 la. I've got the new blue vinyl. La 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 la. I've got
Yeah,
a picture
it's so
disc.
weird.
La 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 la. Yeah, it's so weird. It is.
Take my
weird.
money.
It's-
Here's my
yeah,
money. I'm
it's-
going to give you my money. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, it is really weird. But even these, the overwhelming majority of these podcasters who normally wouldn't go to that towards that direction, when they found out that this song "Woman Is the End of the World" was not going to be on the box set, they were up in arms. You know, metaphorically speaking, they were absolutely incensed, and there were actually claims of wokeism coming from podcasters, these very same podcasters, and they were directing a lot of that anger towards Sean Lennon, John Lennon's son, because he's now in charge of the estate and he's in charge of the box sets, as I said earlier. So a lot of that anger was going towards him. They were accusing him of being woke. They were accusing him of rewriting history. For example, what would John Lennon think? What would John Lennon think if he were alive now? Would he want this to be taking place? Would he want his songs to be censored effectively like this? So eventually, Sean Lennon came out and made a statement about it. Well, he didn't make a statement. He appeared in a magazine interview, Mojo magazine, a music magazine, and he mentioned it briefly. And this is what he said. He said that omitting the song was hard because it wasn't just something that I decided personally. It's something that everyone was advising. No one wanted to put it out. So I think it's a really important song, but times have changed. No one wanted to put it out, and I'm not going to bring any more negativity to my parents than I have to. So that's what he said. Interestingly, these mainstream podcasters actually came up with a conspiracy theory of their own, because a week after that was announced that that box set was coming out, this is a week later, came the announcement that the new Beatles anthology album was coming out, Anthology 4. So in the Beatles world, this is big news because you're getting tracks on that album which have never been heard before, outtakes, studio takes, that kind of thing. So these are previously unheard songs. So in terms of marketing, this is a very strange move because basically what you're doing is you're overshadowing a product, because arguably you could say that the Beatles, in terms of a product to sell, is bigger than the John Lennon box set. So if you come out advertising the anthology a week after the John Lennon box set, you're basically overshadowing the potential sales of the John Lennon box set. So in marketing terms, that seems a bit strange, like suicide almost.
Yeah.
And the mainstream Beatle podcasters have a theory. They believe that the reason that this was announced a week after the announcement of the box set, along with the omission of this song, was a way of deflecting the negative news and the negative comments and the negative energy that was being directed to that news. So, okay, let's announce the release of this Beatles album now in order to deflect away from that.
Another distraction.
A distraction. And it goes even further than that, because Sean isn't actually revealing in that statement I just read who was to blame for this. He's not actually saying who it was, because he says, as I said, no one wanted to put it out. That's what he said in that interview. Who's no one? Well, according to Gary Van Syok, which is an interesting name, Gary Van Syop. Gary Van Syok, he's one of the members he's one of the members of Elephant's Memory Band, who were the band that were the backing band for the Sometime in New York City album. They backed John and Yoko on that album. So I can't remember what instrument he played, but he was in the band. And he's been appearing on a lot of podcasts recently, plugging this new box set, which I think came out in October. And he has said in a couple of interviews that he spoke with Sean and asked him why this was omitted from the box set, because he's not happy about it either, because it's like one of his songs that he played on and it's not coming out. And he said that the lawyers stopped him from releasing it, and he also implied that it was the record company that stopped him from releasing it. Universal Music Group, UMG, which is a music conglomerate. It's the largest record company in the world as we speak. It owns
have put out some
EMI,
of the biggest
which
rap
is the
and hip hop albums in history, all featuring said N-word emblazoned across all the tracks. So more irony, more double standards.
Yeah,
you couldn't make it up.
More double standards. It doesn't make sense, because if you go on the official John Lennon Spotify page, and you type in Sometime in New York City, the song's on there. It's on Spotify. All right, that word has been they put stars in between the spelling of the words. You can't read the word anymore, whereas that never used to be.
Gee, I wonder what it said in the first place. I can't think.
Yeah, but it's still on there.
Just a lot of virtue signaling going on.
It's just weird, because there was there was a CD that came out a few years ago, a John Lennon compilation, and it was on there. It was on the John Lennon anthology box set. It was on there. I think it's on there twice. I might be wrong about that, but I seem to recall it. It was actually, there's two versions of it on the box set that came out a few years back. But on this, it's not there.
It's totally.
And it's totally weird. And as you say, Mark, this is UMG, which now owns EMI Records, which is what the label that the Beatles and John Lennon were signed to. So UMG owns EMI. It also owns a load of other record labels, such as Motown. I think it owns Def Jam. It owns Abbey Road Studios. And I thought to myself, okay, like you say, Mark, I thought, okay, let's have a look. Okay, UMG. Let's have a look at some of the records they've released this year. Okay. Like you say, rap music gets away with it. It gets away with it. It can have the N-word. And not only can it have the N-word, it can have the F-word. It can be derogatory to women. So it can have songs derogatory to women, calling them HOs and
Gardening tools.
BITCHs.
I think that's the difference.
Yeah, God.
This is a feminist song.
What's,
Those are songs against feminists. You know,
yeah,
that was the whole point of the song, of John's song.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is
So I
what
had to
is
look
Julian's stance these days? Do we know? Is Julian woke?
Oh, he just keeps.
Or do we not know 'cause he never said anything?
He doesn't really say anything. He's very wishy-washy.
Yeah.
I don't think he was into the masks. I don't think I seem to remember an interview where he said he wasn't into masks, but he didn't go deep. He didn't give a reason as to why he wasn't into masks. I seem to recall him. He wasn't being very forthright. He was being a bit wishy-washy. So I'm not sure
One
what
hit
his
song every
stance
40
is.
years really isn't enough, is it?
No. So I looked at UMG. I thought, let's have a look at Universal Music Group and see how many, because they own all these labels. There's going to be a lot of rap artists that are on there under their banner. So I found a few rap songs. These are released through UMG, right? So we got this one by rap artist Offset. This is from August 25 on the Motown label, which is owned by UMG. Right, I won't read you the whole lyrics, just some of them. Right, back in that bag, I was in with the bros. White Bay N knows like his ass got a cold. Fuck, what you got? I got the chose. Speaking of HOS, right, garden hose. I'm really the one that BITCH chose. N said he made set, make another one. I lost a BITCH last year, got another one. Dropping that bullshit, N ass need to be punched. Then you got Key Glock, I'm Getting It, from his Glockavelli album, again this year. It's on the label Paper Route Empire, which is a division of UMG. I just put a BITCH on pause because she was getting too deep in her feelings, BITCH. I'm a killer, can't tell about my image, all that broke shit, N, fix it. A, my N, go and make some happen. N's sneak dissing about that, I don't care. Excuse my French, I don't care. And finally, Kodak Black, lyrics from Kodak Black from 2025, and this is on the Capital label, owned by UMG. I'm a fuck N killer. Tell that N, keep it cute, for shit get ugly. So
Matt's also
woman is the
available
N
for
of the
children's
world.
parties.
Really deep. You have to be 18, by the way, to watch this live. So if you're not 18,
Yeah.
you gotta leave now.
Right. Incidentally,
Our
guys,
explicit
looking at the
lyrics.
comments. Just looking at the comments on the chat here, and quite a few people are saying they'd like to hear a bit more input from Desiree, if she's got anything more to add to any of these subjects. Any
Please.
reflections, any insights, feel free to jump in there if you've got any observations to make.
I at this point, there's a lot to say and also nothing to say all at the same time. But
That's very deep.
I think my real focus has always been kind of John Lennon rather than Paul McCartney, and his assassination is very passionate for me, and I would really love to find the truth and at least more information. And like I was kind of saying earlier, it always seems like other researchers and other podcasters, that subject is completely off limits. I don't know why. I don't know why people can't see glaring inconsistencies with his assassination and everything that went down those nights. If you just give it 5 minutes of thought, you can obviously see that things are not as they are, as they say they are, as they have said that they are. And yeah, here we are 45 years later, and still nothing has been really said or questioned or any of those things. So that's a main focus of mine. And I'm passionate about that subject, although life here the last few years has not been research focused for me. So I've kind of been all that stuff is kind of on the back burner, but it is definitely still very important to me and very passionate in that sense. And I do have my blog, which also has not been updated in a while, but the number 9 blog on WordPress is is my main site, and I have a lot of John Lennon articles on there for you guys to enjoy.
Shirley in the chat is asking what you think happened. If you have a particular viewpoint on that fateful night 45 years ago.
John Lennon specifically, I don't know exactly. I know that it seems like, and gosh, I don't have my notes and everything in front of me, but it seems like there was a couple of other characters there that are never really discussed. One was not the doorman, not Jose Padermo, but the other guy. He was like the car guy. Do you know what I'm talking about, Matt? I can't
the limo driver.
His name off the top of my head. What's that?
The limo driver.
No, Jay something or others. Anyway.
Oh, was it Jay Hastings?
Hastings, that's it. Yeah, he actually came and took the gun off site and took it down to the basement. And then brought it back up when the police arrived. Like, oh, here's your gun. This is what was like. There's just really weird things, and the fact that they only they recovered 6 or 7 bullets, but there was only supposedly 5 that were shot. There's holes in the glass by the entryway of the Dakota, and like, how did those bullet holes get there? There was nothing said that anything was missed and went into the Dakota building, like, just all kinds of weird inconsistencies. And so I don't really know what happened. I know that what they say happened most likely did not happen. There's much more to the story. I'd love to find out.
I was getting echoes of Dr. Richard Asher's body going missing for a week and then turning up in the basement after it had already been checked a few days later, in terms of bullets disappearing and guns and stuff, and nothing ever adds up. That seems to be a consistent point when it comes to the Beatles.
All around the Beatles. Yeah, many different stories like that. Yep.
And there's all the Rosemary's Baby synchronicities surrounding the Dakota building.
Right.
I've detailed many of these on previous occasions. It's just insane, the amount of tie-ins between that movie, Charles Manson, Roman Polanski, Sharon Tate, John Lennon. Oh, the connections just go on for days.
Yeah.
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 It feels supernatural.
Yeah. I made a video about that some years back, and yeah, it's one of my most watched of all the videos. It's just never ending, and I found more since.
Isn't it interesting that I was thinking the other day about the Quentin Tarantino movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which rewrote the Tate Manson storyline and just muddied the waters and just made the whole narrative completely ridiculous in terms of the way it was represented. And it reminds me of the movie Yesterday. We started off this show, talking about how when that movie first came out, that was the time of the first Magical Mystery Talk. And at the end of that film, which wasn't it Richard Curtis behind that one, Matt? I think it was a Richard Curtis movie.
That sounds right.
I think he was the executive producer or something like that. And at the end of that film, you've got John Lennon alive and well to this very day.
Right.
Hiding out somewhere by the coast doing art and music and stuff. And he's portrayed by Robert Carlyle in the film. But that's muddying the waters also, and that's rewriting Beatles history in suggesting that John never actually died in 1980, but was somehow able to fake his death and fade off into obscurity. So you got to wonder whether we're being handed little clues here, or whether the role of films like this is just to make the jobs of researchers like us that much more difficult, and just to confuse and confound us beyond belief.
Or just to make us look more ridiculous to the average person, Yeah. It's like, but imagine John Lennon is alive and Paul McCartney is dead.
That would be the biggest mindfuck of all, wouldn't it? And what about the movie Let Him Be? You must have seen that one, Desiree.
Let Him Be? I did many years ago. I cannot quite recall it, but yeah, that was a good one. That was the who was behind that one?
Mark Stacer.
Right, Mark Stacer. Yeah. That was actually a really eye-opening film and blog that he did after that for me. So that was great. But that was the same thing. He was still alive, right? Hiding in
Yeah.
plain sight, basically, and
So Mark
doing
Staper is
music
a
and
professional John Lennon impersonator,
right.
but according to many, that film was
Yes,
showing
yes.
you that this is actually John.
That's
This is
actually
actually him.
hmm
That had just faded off, and because he
Mm.
loved the music so much and he loved performing, being a musician, he carried on doing that. But he was able to do it outside of all the fame and spotlight and adulation, and just
Right.
do it on a much more grassroots, organic kind of level.
Yeah.
But still put his music out there.
Yeah.
What if there's some truth in that? Who knows?
Well, yeah, and would be appealing to somebody who was as big and famous as the Beatles were, I would think, after playing to stadiums and to get that small, intimate crowd again, which you could never have if you were John Lennon or Paul McCartney. You can't get that intimate crowd anymore. So that would be something that would be very appealing. For sure, I would think.
Yeah. It's a mind fuck.
Yeah,
isn't
for
it?
sure. I wonder how many other conversations of this
Good
nature
mention,
are
Paul is
taking
dead.
place out there.
Yeah.
Paul is dead. Yeah, you've got a couple of items on the schedule there concerning that broad subject area. Maybe
Oh,
we should go
yes.
there with those.
We
Yeah.
need
got
to
there?
see. You have
Yeah.
a picture, don't you?
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's going to work. I'll try and put the picture up. So before I go into that, Mark, did we swap an email some time back? There's the Spinal Tap movie, the sequel, and Paul or whoever it is in that film. He stars in it. But didn't you send another clip where Paul in the film says he's a double or something? Do you remember that
Yeah,
clip?
well, there's a piece that is in the final version of that film. This is Spinal Tap 2, which is a sequel 40 years on from the original This is Spinal Tap. And it's the same guy, Rob Reiner, Christopher Guest, all the same actors from the first movie. And they're all grizzled and getting on a bit now. And they're in the studio and they're talking about the curse of the drummer, first off, this sort of rock music trope whereby the drummer in a big rock band is always the most unfortunate member and is usually the one to go before their time, which is actually true in quite a lot of cases. But they're all rehearsing in the studio for this comeback concert that they're going to be doing. And as well as the real Elton John turning up in the movie, the real Paul McCartney, or is it, at least who we think of as the real Paul McCartney, turns up. And he's kind of interacting with the guys in the studio. And they notice him through the glass and they say, is that Paul? And he goes, well, it's one of them. So there's a little inside nod, likes of us, I guess, a little inside joke. And it's just playing into this whole idea, the whole mythos of Paul McCartney being dead. So
yeah, but not only that, he says it's one of them, which implies there's more than one.
There's
more
than one.
more than one double. Yeah,
Right.
That the other Paul didn't die. That there's actually more doubles. So
Right.
it's bringing that. That's introducing that side of the line of thinking into the mainstream under the spotlight.
And I
So
did a
talk
show
about
recently with
mindfuck.
Dom and Chris of Sheep Farm, and we were discussing the reaction that we might be getting to some of the work that we put out, the likes of us, and particularly the likes of Mike Williams, Sage of Quay, who's done so much work on the Beatles. He's put out so many shows, getting down to the true nature of the group and whether they could have really written all the songs that they were said to have done. And of course, tons on the idea of Paul having been replaced. And I wonder if when we get little sly nods such as this in mainstream movies, it could actually be a direct reaction to what the likes of Mike and maybe us and others are saying in our shows. It's like a little coded comm that's being sent back to us. You have to wonder.
So
makes me wonder anyway. Okay, he's gone again, is he? Tony Davenport says there are two guys you need to speak to. One is called Mark Windows. Mark Windows does not like me, so that's not going to be happening. Yeah, me and Mark Windows do not see eye to eye. The other one is Tech Iron Zeesh. Don't know him, but okay, I'll look into him. Yeah, I was just padding a bit there, Matt, but you're back now. Take it away.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah, this might be a good point to mention. If the Beatles are in on this, this might actually lend itself to that line of thinking. In February this year, Ringo Starr appeared at the Grand Ole Opry, would you believe, for the first time in his career. The country music mecca, he played a concert at the Grand Ole Opry. Now, anyone who follows the career of the Beatles, who's a bit of a fan, will know that Ringo's a bit of a country and western fan. For example, in the Beatles, he recorded country style songs when he was given his quota of 1 or 2 songs on a Beatles album. There's the song Act Naturally, also What Goes On from the Rubber Soul album, and he also released the country album Bouquets of Blues, I think it was in 1970. And in January this year, he released an album called Look Up. Apparently, this has been labelled a country album. I've listened to it. I'm actually not the greatest Ringo fan, I have to say. I'm not the greatest Ringo fan, but I sat there and listened to the album. Oh, just terrible. I just don't like the guy's voice. So I sat and listened to the album for the sake of this show, and I thought it's not very country. I just didn't see it as being very country. But
it could be worse. It could always be a Yoko album.
I don't know. I think I'd rather opt for Yoko, to be honest.
If it was a Yoko and Ringo duet album.
Give me Ringo.
Oh,
Give me Ringo over Yoko.
Oh, make it stop. So yeah, apparently this new album he released earlier this year, Look Up, is a country album because it's got country or called it sort of artists guesting on the album who are from that world, such as Billy Strings is on the album, Molly Tuttle. And it did get to number 2 in the country album charts. And on the cover, it's got Ringo with a cowboy hat on. So it's got to be a country album if he's got a cowboy hat on the front cover. Anyway, so yeah, he sang at the Grand Ole Opry earlier this year. And at the end, I haven't watched the concert. I'm just going by a video that somebody sent me. It's a video of a video. So basically what I've been sent is a bastardized version of a video that was previously up online. The original version is this blogger guy who put up a video looking back at Beatles news from 2025 or from half of 2025. He's doing a report on what's been going on in the Beatles world. And part of that news roundup featured Ringo on stage at the Grand Ole Opry. So what this other YouTuber did was he nicked that part and put it up on his page because he found it to be very, very bizarre. And this is the YouTube video that was sent to me to take a look at. Thanks to Brian for sending it along. Thanks, mate. So in this video, it's at the end of the concert and it's Ringo singing With a Little Help from My Friends. And he's got a whole load of musicians up on stage with him to do kind of like a sing-along. And if you look at the end of the stage, so I'm going by memory, I think Ringo is on one side of the stage and this other guy is on the other side. One of the people that's on the stage singing along to this song is a guy by the name of Too Slim. That's his stage name. Too Slim, aka none other than Fred LeBour, the man who is credited with quote unquote inventing a lot of the Paul is dead clues back in 1969 when the conspiracy theory, the car crash conspiracy theory went mainstream, was born. So he's effectively one of the people that is responsible or credited with helping to make that conspiracy theory a reality. So the question then beckons, so what is Fred LeBour doing on stage with Ringo? So what's he doing there? So for anyone who's not
they supposedly
aware of
had no connection whatsoever, correct? But prior to this, like they didn't know each other. They weren't friends. They weren't.
I don't know. I tried to play devil's advocate and say, okay, well maybe Fred just jumped on stage because he was dressed like a country and western singer. I think I've got a picture of him somewhere. I'll try and bring it up so you can see it. He's dressed flamboyantly, I think is one word you could say. He's got this very flamboyant country, like a rhinestone cowboy type outfit on. It could just be I'm playing devil's advocate here. I'm not saying this is what happened. It could just be that Ringo didn't know that the guy jumped. Maybe he just jumped on stage uninvited. And given that he is this guy who is called Too Slim, who's a country and Western musician, it could be that everyone knows who he is at the Grand Ole Opry. So they saw him jump on the stage. Officials saw him jump on. Oh, leave him, let him. Oh, it's all right. It's only Too Slim. We know him. He's okay. He's not trouble. So it could be that he just invited himself onto the stage. But what the problem with that is that I did a bit of looking on the internet, a bit of searching, and I found a YouTube page. I think the name of the band that he belongs to is Riders in the Sky. I think that's the name of the band that Fred belongs to. I think they're called Riders in the Sky. Anyway, I managed to find a Facebook post of Fred LeBour standing next to Ringo in a passageway, posing for the camera. So this is staged. It's not a case of Fred ran up to Ringo and kind of invaded the space. It looks like they posed for this. It was arranged, as I say. It looks like it could be backstage somewhere. Could be backstage of the Grand Ole Opry, because Fred is dressed in the same costume as he is on stage when he sings along to the song. I've got a picture of it here. I don't know if it's going to come up. I'll post it in now. I'll try and post it in now. Let's see if I can do it. Slides and image. Right. Let's try and do this. I've got the picture here. I'll just try and
to
find
this live streaming lock, folks. You may have noticed.
Yes, we are
finding our way.
See if I can find it.
See if that'll work.
File did I put it in?
Big shout out to Chris, Gaping Gobs out of Sheep Farm. Welcome along, mate.
Gaping Gobs. Brilliant. Love it.
He says, "Old balls, can't believe I've been sat here missing this."
Better late than never.
Matt's just finished the intro.
Yeah. In Dom fashion. Yeah. Okay. I'll see if I try that. So yeah, so if they obviously know each other. And this isn't the first time, as I'm searching for this, I'll tell you that this isn't the first time that Ringo has been mixing with people who have been involved in the PID replacement theory world, if that makes sense. Right, here we go. I've got it. I don't know if you can see it there, Mark, Desiree. I've loaded it into the gallery there. I don't know if you can. Oh, right, okay.
Oh, hang on. Is that it? Let's see. Is that going to work?
So
far it's not.
While you're doing that, I'll just let you know that this isn't the first time that Ringo has been mixing with people who have been. There you go. So that's Fred LeBour, the guy with the cowboy hat. This is the man who, back in the 60s, was part of the original creators of what we call the PID conspiracy theory. So
right.
What happened was, back in September 69, so the rumour had been going around on the college campuses, apparently, so we're told, from about 1966 onwards, that Paul McCartney was dead. And in 1969, in September 69, there was an article in a college newspaper that was written by a guy by the name of Timothy Harper. And the article was called, Is Paul McCartney Dead? And he claims, and this was for a student paper, I think, and Timothy Harper claims that he wrote this article after he'd been told by a student that there was a rumour going around the campuses that Paul McCartney was dead. And it's in Harper's article that we first get to learn about some of the so-called clues, which are now part of the fabric of the conspiracy theory. They're old news now, but Timothy Harper is responsible for bringing some of these to light. Conspiracy theories, or clues, I should say, to the conspiracy theory that we now know as, take as read, if you like. Some of the clues, the so-called clues that he included in this article, include if you look on the back of the Sgt. Pepper album, you've got John, George and Ringo facing the camera, and then you've got the guy who's got his back facing the camera, and that's supposed to be Paul's replacement, and he's not looking towards the camera because it's not him, it's a replacement, so he doesn't want to draw attention to the fact that he looks a bit different. So Timothy Harper is credited with coming up with that clue. He's also credited with coming up with the clue on the front cover of the album, where you have the bass guitar, the floral representation of a bass guitar, making it look like it's a grave side because it's all floral on the front of the cover. And he's also the man who's credited with coming up with the Revolution number 9 clue, where if you play the man saying number 9 on the White Album on the track Revolution 9, if you play that backwards, it says "Turn Me On, Dead Man." It's in that article that it was first brought to light. So what happened was that article came out, and then a few weeks later, a student phoned a radio presenter by the name of Russ Gibb and said to him, "Hey man, have you heard about these rumours that Paul McCartney's dead?" And the DJ, I think, said no. He says, "Go on, put Revolution 9 on and play it backwards." And it says, "Turn me on, dead man." So that's what he did. And this is where Fred LeBour comes into the narrative, because he claims he heard this radio broadcast, and from that and decided to write, in his words, a satire article about the PID claims. And he claims he's the man who's responsible for coming up with the name William Campbell. He's also claimed that he's the man who came up with the Abbey Road album cover clues, like the barefooted Paul walking across the road, signifying a corpse, Paul holding a cigarette in his right hand when it should be in his left hand because he was left-handed. So this is where Fred LeBour comes into the story, basically, into the PID conspiracy. He claims he was responsible for those clues. If he's right, if that's true, it makes it all the much weirder that he should be standing in that photograph with Ringo Starr. What on earth is going on there? And it's not the first time that Ringo has been, as I said earlier, it's not the first time that Ringo has been aligned with people who have claimed to have been part of the PID conspiracy. Another guy who Ringo has been friends with is a guy by the name of, I think his name is Keith Allison. I don't know if you've heard of Keith Allison. He was a musician back in the 60s. He was a session musician, and he was also in a band called Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
And
my dad serviced the fire extinguishers in his house once.
Sorry?
My dad serviced the fire extinguishers in his house once in the 80s.
Wow. That's a coincidence.
Wow. So are you in on this as well?
Right?
That's it. Got you. Bang to rights, Mark.
My cover's blown.
So your cover's blown now. That's it. Mark is dead. MID. So yeah, Keith Allison it's claimed that Keith Allison was one of the Paul replacements because he really looks like Paul McCartney, apparently. And I wrote an article about this ages ago. It was called Doubles, Decoys and Disguises, an article about PID and doubles and decoys being brought in, perhaps. And Keith Allison, it was a 2-part article series, and Keith was featured in part 1 quite extensively. And from what I found, having looked into him, was what happened was he used to appear as a musician on a show called Where the Action Is in the mid-60s, which was like a music show in the US. And people started to write in saying, hey, that guy who's in that band, he really looks like Paul McCartney. And he's actually appeared in 1965 through to about mid-66. So you could say a few months before Paul is claimed to have died in the car crash in late 66. Keith Allison actually appeared in some music magazine articles where the headline actually reads, Paul lookalike Keith Allison. If you go to my website, The Occult Beatles, and look for this particular article, Doubles, Decoys and Disguises, Part 1, you'll see that I've made screenshots of those magazine articles. But back then, back in the mid-60s, this Keith Allison guy was being touted, was being credited as looking really a lot like Paul. So, and another few internet sources I looked at that I came across claim that Allison was the winner of a Paul McCartney lookalike contest as well. And according to the site IMDb, Internet Movie Database, it claims that the contest was sponsored by Dick Clark, who was a music presenter in the States in the 60s, I think. Also, it was also sponsored by the American teen magazine Tiger Beat and the Beatles. But I haven't been able to find any other source whether that's true or not. So it's claimed that Keith Allison was one of the early replacements for when Paul was replaced, that he won this talent contest and Keith Allison was brought in. Thing is, and this is according to Keith Allison, Allison was friends with Ringo to the point that, to quote Allison, quote unquote, on and off, they shared an apartment together in the 1970s. Not only that, he also claims he was musical director of a Ringo TV special that came out in 1978. And you can find this on YouTube. Right, so here's the weirdness that is the world of the Beatles. So Keith Allison was musical director of Ringo, this TV special in 1978, which was part comedy. It's terrible. It's an hour long. It's really terrible. Bad acting, terrible plot. It's kind of part musical, part comedy, part fantasy kind of drama thing. And in this, so Keith Allison is the musical director of this fantasy hour-long series in which Ringo plays the role of Ringo, a famous pop star who decides to take on a double of himself who was born on the same day as him, who is a doppelganger, and they decide to swap places. So the unknown double becomes the pop star, and Ringo fades into obscurity by trading places with this regular guy. So surreal or what?
Right. And there's so many other
Surreal or
stories
what?
like that too. With all the Beatles, they seem to have those same themes: the doubles, the twins, the
So many.
the evil and the good, and yeah.
Guys, I'm conscious of the
Yeah.
fact that we wanted to wrap the show up by the top of the hour. So we're kind of against the clock here. And I thought a good place to kind of start to wind up would be to address a question that we've had from Shirley in the chat, saying, what is the biggest question you could ask Beatles related and have it answered 100%? So if you had one question over and above all others that you could have answered and it'd be a 100% valid answer. Maybe I'll start with this one. I mean, an obvious one would be, was Paul replaced? But maybe that's a bit too obvious. So I'd really like to know why it was that Stuart Sutcliffe and Pete Best were both removed one way or another from the group right before they became famous. So right before they broke through with their first hit single, Love Me Do, in October 62, Pete Best had been kicked out and replaced by Ringo as the drummer, and Stuart Sutcliffe had died of a brain aneurysm at the ripe old age of 21. It just appears that lineup, that mythical lineup of the Beatles, was the one that the controllers wanted to go with, and Pete and Stuart just didn't fit into that. So I'd love to know the real reasons why those guys weren't included. Was Stuart Sutcliffe's death just this terrible tragedy, this random thing that we're told it was? Was Pete kicked out because of the embarrassing situation involving Rogue Best and his mother Mona having been knocked up by Neil Aspinall, the Beatles' mate? So I think I'd most like to get the answer to that one. So, Desiree, if you had one question that you could have answered, what would yours be?
I think that I would have to give it some serious thought. And I think I would ask a question that would be so general that they'd have to answer in a way that would make me know everything of all the questions I could possibly ask. But something like, maybe like, were the Beatles as they said they were? Did they come organically? Did they write all of their own music? Were they backed by nefarious sources, or was this completely as as we've been told, 4 lads from Liverpool, excuse me, 4 lads from Liverpool who just happened to hit the biggest, most successful, greatest band there ever was and probably will ever be. Is that really what happened?
That's
and
more
then
than
I think
one question.
well, right, like, you know, did they come the way that it's been told to us? Were they an organic band that hit it big, or were there other sources propping them up? And I think by a question like that, if it was answered honestly, and we were given the answer, no, that's not how it was, then I think a lot of things could probably fall into place, just knowing that it was all kind of a farce from the beginning, if that's what happened.
Right. I wonder if we'll ever get the answers to those.
I
Probably
don't know.
not. Eh?
Probably not.
We'll keep asking the
No.
questions, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt,
What about
would
you,
your
Matt?
question be?
Oh God. Oh, I don't know because there's so many.
It's
suppose.
hard to narrow down one.
It's so hard, and I feel for you, Desiree, because on the spot or what, hey? Trying to come up with. Yeah. Okay. Off the top of my head, I suppose because I've been looking into the '60s counterculture in the UK for signs that it was a psyop. The Beatles would have had to have been part of that psyop if it was a psyop, because they were the flag wave bearers of the '60s counterculture movement, not only for Britain but for America as well. If it hadn't have been for the Beatles, the counterculture movement, the so-called counterculture movement of the '60s, wouldn't have been as big as it was, I would argue. So that's
It
the
may not
promotion of
have even
LSD. It might not have even happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my question. Were the Beatles willing or unwilling, unconscious agents of a drive to socially engineer through the '60s counterculture? Because if that question were answered, then that would answer the question of the whole general question: was the '60s counterculture a complete psyop? Do you know what I mean? That would answer just one question, but it would answer another huge question overhanging.
Yeah.
I think I'll go with that for now. I might be
Maybe
might
a
have different
subsidiary question to
tomorrow,
that
but
could be
that'll do for now.
a subsidiary question could be
Yeah.
the Butcher cover. What were you thinking?
That's a good one. Yeah.
Why?
Why?
I mean, I've heard of avant-garde art and counterculture, but even so,
Yeah. Especially knowing what we know now in this day and age.
right.
What were they
Things we've
trying to
come
say with
discover
that?
in more
Yeah.
recent times. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And with regards to Pete Best, oh gosh, another of those weird things. This is just something that's only come to my attention in the last few days. You know that new film that's coming out? There's a new film that's coming out. It's going to be called The Beatles, a 4-film cinematic event. And it's a film, they're biopics, basically. One on John, one on Paul, one on George, and one on Ringo. And it's going to be directed by Sam Mendes, the guy who directed a couple of the Bond films. I'm not sure when these films are coming out, but people have already said with a slight smile on their face, so who's going to go and see the Ringo film? They're all going to be released separately from each other. They're going to be staggered over a series. Go and one on George.
No.
Quite recently, as far as I'm aware, now these films are said to be coming out in 2028. Quite recently, some of the actors that are going to be playing the roles in this film have been announced. The Beatles, all the members of the Beatles, actors are going to play their roles have been announced. Also, people who are going to play Yoko Ono, Linda McCartney, the Beatles producer George Martin, Derek Taylor, who was the Beatles' trusted PR man, Mal Evans, their trusted gopher roadie. He's been they've found someone to play him. Also, Paul McCartney's dad, Jim McCartney, and also they found an actress to play John's Aunt Mimi. She was the lady who basically raised John Lennon from about the age of, from when he was a baby up until he left Aunt Mimi's home when he was a teenager. The actress who's been found to play the role of Aunt Mimi is Leanne Best, niece of Pete Best.
Pete Best. Mm-hmm.
So
That's
again, we have this weird, we've got this weird interconnection thing going on. So here we've got Pete Best, this guy who was with the pre-fame Beatles from 1960 through their days in Liverpool, Hamburg. The Beatles signed their record contract and he gets kicked out because supposedly he's not a very good drummer. And George Martin, the producer, said to Brian Epstein, this is the official story, by the way. He said to Brian Epstein, look, we can't have Pete Best in the band in the studio because he's not a very good drummer, but you can do what you want with him on stage. But when it comes to the studio, I'm going to have a session drummer come in and play the parts. Brian relayed this news to the Beatles, and the Beatles said, well, we never liked him anyway. He never really gelled with us as a person or as a drummer. We want him out. Brian, take care of it. Get rid of him. We want Ringo. That's the official story. But of course, there's all these conspiracy theories whirling around that there was more to it. But it's getting a little bit too interlinked now, isn't it? Because like you said, Mark, Pete Best was best mates with Neil Aspinall, who went to school with Paul and George, and who was not only friends with Pete Best, but he was the Beatles' roadie in their pre-fame years. And when Pete was sacked, Neil decided to stay on, and he eventually became one of the inner circle. He became, I think, the CEO of the Beatles company, Apple. He was like the gatekeeper of the Beatles, and he was with Apple right up until he died in the 2000s. So he was number one, or one of the top gatekeepers, inner circle of the Beatles. Former or best friend of Pete Best. At the same time, he was having an affair with Pete Best's mum, pre-fame Beatles years, and they had a child who they named Rogue, R-O-A-G, who now runs a Beatles museum in Liverpool, if I'm not mistaken. And it's his daughter who is Leanne Best. So Leanne Best is Rogue's daughter, Pete Best's niece, and Neil Aspinall's granddaughter. Would that be? Yeah.
Yep.
And now she's playing the role in this major Beatles movie. Now, to be fair to her, she's not some fly-by-night actress. She has got a very extensive CV. I looked online. Apparently, she's appeared in a number of hit British TV shows like Cold Feet, Wire in the Blood. She starred in Star Wars: The Force Awakens in 2015. So she's not a struggling actress. She's been around. But still, it's just one of those names, those connections to attach to an already interlinked Beatles story where you already have George Martin, let's not forget, who 15 years before he produced the Beatles was being taught oboe by Margaret Elliott, also known as Margaret Asher, the mother of Jane Asher, who 15 years later would date Paul McCartney, who George Martin would produce in the Beatles. What a
just
coincidence.
keeps on coming back around again.
Just
and the
keeps
crazy
on
thing
coming.
about the Pete Best story is that Pete is still alive. He's that rarest of entities, somebody that was involved in the early days of the Beatles who is still alive. So he might even be out there listening to this show now. Isn't that a tantalizing thought? Big shout to Pete if he is, on this 45th anniversary of the assassination of his old bandmate. So we'll wrap it up there, guys, because we wanted to keep this within 2 hours. So this is the first Magical Mystery Talk live stream that we've done. Should probably try it again. We've had a few.
Yeah, that was fun.
There. Yeah.
I like that.
We'll have to try and iron out a few of the issues for next time. But what I liked was the fact that we had some real-time feedback, lots of great comments in the chat. People are asking questions. We should probably take some of these questions and try and address them next time, and maybe not leave it until next December before we do another show.
I can't
maybe
see those questions, so...
Oh, you can.
Okay, well, I'll copy the questions and send them to you. But yeah, I think we should probably try and do one at some other point during the year. What do you reckon?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe even a more interactive one where we can like live answer these questions that people are asking of us, and
absolutely
something like that might be fun too.
Chris has just said Matt's just got started.
Yeah.
Yes, he has. So we should probably shut him down right now. All right.
Apologies if I'm looking a little bit. It's just that you're cutting out, and I'm not sure if you can hear me or not. So
Yeah,
stop
I think
talking
you've been
just in
giving
case I'm
people
talking over you. So
epileptic
if I'm
fits
looking
with
like
your
that,
lighting, from what they're saying. People have been
Really?
having
Okay.
yeah, some comments about your lighting. But anyway, yeah, great show.
Okay.
Glad we did it. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for all your comments. For anyone watching this after the event on YouTube, hope you've enjoyed the show. Come back for more. We'll do this one again some point soon. Thanks for watching. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye, folks.
Bye.